All right. Welcome to episode 11. We've already done 10 of these. Now
Wow.
we're up to 11.
Nobody's watched 10 of these, huh?
Yeah,
Nice.
some have watched. I don't think they, well, okay. So for those listening, of course, we still have a YouTube channel in case people are interested
Right.
just to
True.
see us.
Yeah, you're right.
We never really mention it. So,
It's what
because
it
when
is.
exactly when we record this, we do it both video and audio, obviously. So if you're interested and you really want to see what we look like, or you already
Yeah,
know what we look like and
yeah.
you're just curious, then go to the Gen X Guys channel on YouTube and you'll find us there. Anyway, it is a new week and new show and playoffs start.
NFL playoffs. You got to make sure you say NFL.
Just NFL, yeah, not for long playoffs.
Yeah. For some teams, that's going to be true.
For some, that will. So I don't know if you saw today, but they were supposed to. The Bills game got pushed to Monday now.
Due to the I saw storms. Yeah.
Yeah. So it'll be interesting because.
Well, how much snow did they get?
Hell, I don't know. It's a lot. How about measure it as a lot? Just call it that.
We'll talk about that later, but yeah, I have feelings about NFL and playoff games in the North. Even though I'm a Browns fan, I'm not sure how I feel about open air stadiums and having the weather play that big of a part. I know there's always going to be the hardcore ones that are just stuck in the past, and I'm not sure if I think it's like our generation and the boomer generation or whatever, but that's football. This is football. But when the weather plays a bigger factor than the teams, especially in the playoffs, I think it's. I mean, I know people are going to say that's football. I'm like, things change. Like the forward pass was invented. If you want to say what's old school, then we should have the forward pass, right? You know, but I'm just saying.
Okay, all right.
I'm just saying. I'm sorry. I went
on down. You're going a little hardcore there.
I am, but it's just because you're going to hear the people say, "No, that's football. It's part of what football is." I'm like, I don't agree with that.
Well,
I mean, I don't know how you feel about it, but like with Buffalo and it being a game where, honestly, skill is like that one game with the Patriots where what? I don't remember if it was Mac Jones or not, but he did 3 passes in the game just because of the weather.
Yeah. Well, I mean, this type of weather is almost going to push you towards a run game only, unless it's just like, obviously they pushed the game out. It was supposed to be Sunday.
Yeah.
They pushed it to Monday now because the heavy storm coming through, and they weren't going to move it to another location because then fans would travel, which would be just as dangerous.
Yeah, they were talking about moving to Cleveland. I'm like, yeah, that's a good neutral spot for the Steelers.
Yeah. Well, it's in their state, so or no, not in their state, but they're close to each other.
It's only like 2 hours away.
They're literally like border state, so it's
pretty close, especially by California standards.
That's true. Everything's close. Everything's close. But so let's talk about playoffs. Let's talk about what's. I mean, there are also lots of news this week. I mean, this is going to be a sports show.
There's a lot of NFL news, especially NFL news.
Well, yeah. So NFL. Let's start with the news at least before we jump into the playoffs. Earlier this week, obviously Pete Carroll was pushed aside. I don't think he stepped aside on his own. He definitely made it sound like he didn't want to leave. So they've decided to move on in the Seahawks, push Carroll away, which I found interesting because I didn't expect that. Especially when his last comments on like that day after the game were like, I've got a lot of energy left. I'm excited to keep going. And then suddenly he's out. And now he's an advisor, which to me just means once he finds another job, he'll be done. And then and then the biggest news, obviously, out of the NFL was Belichick being pushed aside. I wouldn't say pushed aside, but the team's been performing poorly since Brady left. So actually, they made their playoffs the first year without Brady.
Yeah.
So
the problem with that. The big problem, I think, with the Belichick one is different just because I think him being GM is the issue, not him as a coach. You know, and it's the one thing. One of the things that kills me is you look at like when they talk about the runs or whatever that these coaches have. Coaches can only play with the players they have, and that's why like the Pete Carroll one. I'm surprised. I mean, Geno Smith is, comeback player type because of reviving his career, but he's still not a great quarterback. I mean, he's not a tier 1 quarterback. I don't even know if I would even put him as tier 2. You know, I don't know. I mean, okay,
But
tier
what
one
do you
being
consider
that.
tier one to be? Yeah.
Well, that's what I
What's
mean.
tier
I
one?
think tier one is like that top 3 quarterback in the league, right?
So you
Like
only say top. So you're basically saying tier one only exists about 3 quarterbacks. That's it.
3 or 4 quarterbacks. I mean, the ones that are like in the MVP conversation, right? Like the ones that have that ability to be in the MVP conversation. And then there's like that group of 5 or 6 that are borderline. And I don't even see Geno Smith in that 5 or 6. I mean, he's like,
So you don't call him a
you know,
top 10 quarterback, basically, is what
I
you're
don't
saying.
think I would.
Although
I
you
think
don't
he
need a
has.
top 10 quarterback to be a playoff team.
I'm sorry.
You don't need a top 10 quarterback to be a playoff
Oh,
team.
I agree with that. Yeah. No. I totally agree with that. But I mean, I think it's one of those things where I think the Seahawks, given their run, I mean, they don't have a 20-year playoff run like the Patriots did, but they've been good solidly even after a lot of the changes that have happened with that team. You know, with
I agree.
everything, it's hard to like deny that Carroll is a top coach.
I mean, they got to the playoffs last year, and then this year they barely missed it. I mean, they were right there. So it's not like he was trending horribly down. Like a couple more pieces, they could be competitive again, to your point.
Yeah.
But apparently, either the owner, she just wanted to move on, or wasn't a Carroll fan anymore, whatever it is. They've decided to shift on that one. And I agree with you. But to your point about the quarterbacks, like, yeah, I'd say Geno Smith is definitely top 20. I mean, he should
easily.
be.
I'd say top half.
Yeah, I mean,
Easily
he's proven he can be a starter in the league.
Yeah, most definitely.
But yeah, as far as your point about like tier one, I mean, it's hard to say what's considered tier one. I think your point on MVP probably is the easiest way to gauge him right now, which would basically put Lamar Jackson, Mahomes, Allen, and then Purdy, if you want to throw him in for this year, just because of what he's done numbers wise in every category, pretty much leads.
Right.
But it's only a second year, and you know he's still growing, unlike the other 3 I just listed, who've been around for quite a bit now. So,
even though I do think Allen is still, I think he's at borderline tier 1, tier 2 quarterback. There's just too many question marks. Like, do you really trust him?
Right.
As a franchise, does he have the skill, ability? Yeah, but there's just some of those things. He has that Brett Favre where, that gunslinger where boom or bust. He's either gonna have a great play, or he's gonna do something that you're like, dude, what the fuck? I mean, it's just one of those you never know with him. And I think as much as I hate to admit it, and look, by the way, I hate Lamar just because he's on the Ravens, but he's cleaned up a lot. You see him sticking in the pocket a lot more than any year in the past. Yep. And now, especially that he has a deep threat like Flowers, like I think Odell is just a good veteran presence for him to throw to.
Right.
Because you see, like most of his plays are like one play a game. He's not Odell of 5 years ago or 6 years ago. But,
definitely not.
Or even 3 years ago. But Flowers has been the type of weapon that that he really needed. But you also see, I think, a maturity in Jackson, and he is definitely playing at MVP level, as much as it bothers me to say so. But yeah, no, he's up there. Mahomes, even with the off year, you can't put it all on him because of his receivers are just absolute just dog shit. I mean, they're just horrible, except for Kels.
Yeah, but Kelsey's come down this year. Kelsey's definitely come down this year.
Yeah.
And no, it has nothing to do with the fact that he's dating Taylor Swift. It's just you spend that many years in playoffs, Super Bowls, it wears down as you get older. The beat downs and all that stuff. And for his role specifically as a tight end, not so much for a quarterback. Quarterbacks are so well protected and given every benefit of the doubt. But the players who actually get out there and have to hit the block and whatnot, like tight ends generally do, they're going to feel it a bit more. And they're
he's still like in yards. He's still like a top 3 or 5 this year.
Yeah, it's not like he's still done well, but he just where you'd expect.
But also, who are they paying attention to? Yeah, who are they paying attention to as a receiver? And let's just be honest, Kels is definitely just really a big wide receiver. He's not a true tight end.
Well,
I
what's
mean,
a true
even
tight end? I mean, they've had
to
catching
me,
tight
to
ends
me,
for
okay, like
decades.
to me, like even a Kittle is borderline to me. I
How
think like
so?
one of the last true ones, like because if you Kittle is a very willing blocker and actually a very effective blocker, and that's the reason why I would say. But he's not like a Gronk. Like a Gronk to me is the prototypical tight end who blocked extremely well, and he's a
So is
big
Kittle.
body
He's one
who
of the
can
best
actually.
blockers in the game on the tight end side.
No, I know. I'm just saying. Well, but I would
All right,
just say like
I'm not following right now, so I'm trying to follow along and see where you're going with this shit because it makes no sense right now.
I don't think Kittle is up there with a Gronk when it comes to blocking. When it comes to some of the older tight ends and how the tight end position has dramatically changed. And I don't think Kittle he's one of the best in the game right now, but I don't think he would be the same thing as as tight ends in the past. Oh, even 10 years ago.
I'm gonna completely disagree with you.
I know you would. I knew you would.
I can't fathom where you're going with this. Tony
I
Gonzalez.
love Kittle
Tony
as a blocker.
Gonzalez,
I don't.
probably the
I think he's
greatest.
an effective blocker in the type of scheme that he's in.
Let me
Yeah.
ask you this though: what is the purpose of a tight end? It's to block and catch, right?
Right.
You block and running plays, and then they're out there catching the ball. That's consistent everywhere.
Right.
Kittle does a great job as a blocker. He would fit.
Does a good job as a blocker.
He's one. I just said he's rated as one of the best blockers for
right
tight
in
ends.
the NFL currently. I'm just saying overall, I wouldn't put him as a great blocker, as just a pure blocker.
Compared to who? I don't think
again compared to like a Gronk.
Gronk was good. I didn't think he was great. He wasn't in stats weren't that great from a blocker standpoint.
From a blocker, yes, he
He's
was
just a big guy. Mike Bavaro. Remember good old Mike Bavaro?
Right.
Yeah. He's your prototypical tight end, right? Because he blocks more than he catches.
Look. I admit that the game has changed. I'm not saying that it hasn't.
You already set yourself up earlier, you old school bastard, with complaining about going back to the running game.
Yeah. Well, again, in those offenses, especially both Shanahan's and that, it's the scheme also dictates a tight end like that. One that can block
like
levels.
Well, it's just like offensive linemen, more agile, or defensive ends, more agile, smaller now, right?
Look at Aaron Donald.
Yeah.
He's
small.
a DT.
Yeah. And he's small, but he's dominating. And you know why? Because his strength, dude, is fucking strong. And
unreal.
Because he's lower, it actually benefits him because he can get up and push the lineman out of the way faster because he's now got the advantage of getting down lower. Plus, he's just super smart. He knows what he's doing.
Yes. But watching him twice a year, do you think he was first team All-Pro?
For this year?
Yeah.
He got it, but I think.
Do you think his name? Do you think his name?
That was his name.
Yeah.
And sometimes that happens, unfortunately. Like your dominance for years sometimes give you that 1 year where you're not quite as dominating. They're like, well, who's better? And it's hard to really say who's better, especially if they have one great year. It's like, okay, well, he's always great. He just injuries or whatever. But before we give up on your tight end conversation, because that's just stupid, I'm just going to say this.
Kittle's a very good block, but he's no,
it's not just about Kittle. I'm moving past Kittle.
Okay.
I'm moving into like.
Do you think Kels is more? I mean, it's just a big wide receiver, and I think that's really.
I think Kelsey is definitely turned into a big wide receiver.
I just think what I'm saying is I think that tight ends today, like it's more important for them to be a receiver than a blocker. I'm just saying that the paradigm is shifted.
They have to be both. I agree.
That it's pivotal. It's by far more important for them to be a receiver than a blocker. Where before there was a balance. I think it just weighs heavily more to receiving skills rather than or being just really a big slot receiver in a way, rather than it being the traditional tight end role.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's a bad thing, and it's evolution. I'm totally fine with that. I'm just saying it's just different.
I don't know. I look at it as, and I agree with you. There's been evolution because they look more for receiving tight ends. Like tight ends didn't do as much back in the 80s,
right?
Or even definitely 70s and 80s, even early 90s.
It's really like Brent Jones. I mean, if you go back to a 49er tight end,
Brent Jones was one of the first few. Tony Gonzalez was probably the one who pushed it to where it is today.
He brought it to another level. Yeah, definitely. And then him and Shannon Sharp.
Yeah, I mean, I love people always say Gronk is probably the best tight end. I disagree. Tony Gonzalez is still the best tight end of all time.
Yeah.
In my mind, just based on what I've seen over the decades, I'd easily
put them in 1A, 1B type thing. Yeah. But then even
Yeah.
if you go back, like actually, I got to change that. If you look at Kellen Winslow Sr.,
True.
back,
Yeah.
if
Good
you go
point.
back that far, he was really him and Ozzie Newsome
Yeah.
were really
Ozzy.
those first ones that were like. But again, they were the exception by far.
Well, you
The
also had Niners going back, Russ Francis. You also
exception.
had Cosby Ford at the Cowboy. I mean, there are quite a few tight ends that have
Yeah,
done their time.
true.
Novacek was a big one during the Cowboys
Oh
run.
yeah.
I mean, he was a great blocker and he was that guy you could send out there and get those tough yards when you needed on the shorts.
God, it's
So
just funny when you actually start thinking about those and what how many like the names that we're just bringing up. It's like how many good really receiving tight ends that the NFL has had. Like I said,
yeah,
I I'll have that preconceived notion about what a tight end is, but there are plenty that were just awesome, and I'm curious to see how good of blockers they were.
yeah.
Just curious, like to actually go back and actually rate them, not just have some arbitrary. Oh, I remember 30 years ago because nobody remembers that far back. We don't.
No, we don't.
I can barely remember 30 days ago, let
Names
alone
just pop
30
in my
years.
head and I go with it, and I don't
Yeah,
know where
yeah.
they're coming from. So
But yeah, I really wonder, like going back and looking at, like it's easy to see like the Kellen Winslow and Ozzie Newsome receiving games, like that one with Kellen Winslow where he had to be dragged off the field, like where I don't know if you've ever seen that one where, and I don't remember the specifics of the game, but it was like they basically had to carry him off. He was just so gone at the end of the game.
hmm.
But I really wonder, like going back and seeing actually how much of blocking was needed back then, or how good of blockers were they? Were they just really big receivers?
It
Expected to
could
go
have
up
been.
the
Yeah.
middle and be that guy to make those hard catches.
Well, they were
Is that
definitely big guys back then. Because
yeah,
again, you just got to remember the time Mark Bavaro, the
yeah,
Giants played the
huge,
Niners.
huge.
Ronnie Lott literally was being pulled by him from
Yeah.
behind. Lott
Oh
had
yeah,
bad angle, but regardless, it just showed tight ends generally were big, thinner offensive linemen, definitely more agile,
yeah, I
but
know.
generally they're trying to
What
be
you
bigger
wanted to be,
guys. Yep. Right.
like
Yeah.
what you wanted to
Exactly.
be, but they wanted to put you on the line because you were big, because you were tall.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm stupid.
Yeah,
Uh,
I mean, no, but
I
that's
did not.
elementary school level coaches.
Yeah.
Actually, okay, I'm changing my mind about tight ends. I think I
All
talked
right.
myself out of it.
Sweet. I won. Good.
You kind of did. I hate to admit it, but it's just one of these. I really wonder. I wonder how much of that is that whole thing of how you glorify the past, or you have
I
a
mean, you're not wrong about
notion of the
schemes.
past.
Schemes nowadays make a difference because you see them
Of course,
be more active, but I still think there's plenty of tight ends who are brought in first for their blocking ability. Like when you look at Iowa, which is usually Iowa University is like the tight end
oh
university nowadays.
yeah,
But they know they both can block and can catch, and
yeah,
so and what they do after the catch is a big piece too, because
true. Well, because
that's where I think there's been more evolution on that side. They're more nimble to get more yards.
that's like with Gronk. It was what he did. I
Yeah, he was
mean,
a fucking freight
he was
truck
a
just
faker.
coming
What?
down.
And the thing is, it was like one of those big, like you talk about Derrick Henry. He was like a Derrick Henry, but a receiver because as he already had the momentum, and guys were just falling off of him. Where I think
Yeah.
Kels is a smart. I think he's one of the smartest tight ends
Well, he
because
and Mahomes have such an understanding with each
oh
other.
yeah, where to go, and then he uses his big body to his advantage. When a cornerback is trying to tackle him, he just can't because he has a bad angle and he's bigger than them and maybe not faster, but fast enough that the speed doesn't help the cornerbacks that much. So
Right.
yeah,
So
it's really
uh,
interesting
we,
to think about.
we clearly got sidetracked into tight ends. Not
It's
sure how we
important.
got there. It's important. It's
It's
an important
important.
role.
It's an
But
important role.
the other thing was we didn't finish up on the coaches, but we did make
Our
mention of
coaches, yeah.
Belichick.
Well, also
Um,
Saban also.
Saban retired from Bama, and immediately within 2 days, the head coach of Washington, DeBoer, has now taken over as head coach of Bama. And
Yeah,
now 5 of his players have already jumped in the portal. And most likely he'll pull them over to Bama.
Oh yeah,
Especially if they're the skill players he knows he wants, then he'll pull them in. But that's massive because Saban was college football for the
oh
last
yeah.
15 years.
That's
So
the name.
6 national titles, and dude, I always feel bad for anybody who jumps in after a great coach like that. Like you're never gonna succeed to his level. Like you're gonna have a tough
If you
time.
do, that's unreal.
That would be, and that's more. Then it becomes Alabama, the name. Like in this case, say Alabama wins the national title in the next 2 years.
Well, think about it. He's taking his skill players over. It doesn't seem like anybody's probably going to leave Bama for that reason. So
hopefully not. Yeah,
you know what I mean. He's basically taking Bama and improving it. And
yeah.
so
I mean, once Saban announced he was retiring, the top recruit, one of the recruits they had who had intended to go to Bama, decided to pull back, and then one other player, I'm forgetting the name, also went into the portal from Bama. But you haven't heard of to your point, a mass exodus. It's more about we're waiting to see, and now we'll see over the next week or two if there's more shift or not. But to your point, Saban, huge name, and then you got Belichick, who basically got told to leave, and thanks to the succession plan they already had in place, the linebacker coach Mayo is now the new head coach of the Patriots. So they didn't have to, interestingly enough, go through that whole process of putting in the search, right? They just straight up could hire because they had that succession plan in place.
Yeah.
So, but now, okay, so now out there, the NFL.
Also, Gabriel. I was surprised that Gabriel. Oh my God, I pronounced his name. Mike Gabriel.
Yeah, it's fine.
Yeah, close enough. Yeah. But he got let go too. I was surprised by that one.
I don't know. You'd heard the rumblings heading into the final couple of weeks that there might be a change, like because there was rumblings about Belichick leaving. They thought maybe Vrabel would end up saying, "Hey, I want out to go be the coach of the Patriots." But it turns out they just disagreed. Like the owner had a plan, and he was pretty tough about his stuff, what he wanted, and so he was gone. But you're right. There's Vrabel.
I love when owners get involved at that level because that always works out so well.
Well, the Carolina owner is ridiculous. I don't know who he's going to get to coach. Well, Washington's new.
Remember? Yeah, I mean, I just meant in the past.
Okay.
Minor in the past. Yeah.
But to your point, let's not forget one other important factor. Michigan wins the national title. I know the team you cheer for, Michigan Wolverines. You're super excited for that. See it in your eyes.
I watched the game.
Yeah, so did I.
No, I didn't. I didn't watch the game.
Oh, I did. I watched it.
I knew they were going to win. As much as I wanted to think that Washington had a chance, I knew that Michigan would. I knew that all of a sudden Michigan would explode on them.
Yeah. But with Michigan, now that they've won, Harbaugh probably will go to the NFL. Is a lot of the speculation out there.
But
he could stay. But that brings up the question. Now you have Harbaugh, Belichick, Vrabel, and Pete Carroll, who's technically an advisor, but he's available. So you got 4 right there.
Well, who do you think is the best landing spot for somebody?
Well, for Harbaugh, it's hard to say. I mean, for him, Chargers probably would be the best one because he'd already have an established quarterback.
Right.
He loves the running game, so he'll figure out a way to get that working.
Right.
And then they have a stout a defense that's good. It needs improvement to get better, but it's good. It's not horrible. It's like mid-tier right now. So it'd be a good spot for him to come in a division that's weakened down because Denver's not doing much. The Raiders will probably keep Pierce in the end, who did a good job at 5-4. But I was trying to think about this, and maybe when was the last time a guy took over as interim coach in the middle season, then got hired to stay on and actually did anything?
The problem I have with Pierce, and I don't really follow the Raiders, but for some reason, and I don't think it's going to be this bad, but it's like what the Browns did with Freddie Kitchens, where you took the fan favorite, the guy who everybody loved, but you put him in a situation now where he had to run the team. Like, for real. I mean, look, interim head coaches are there just to keep the ship going. They're not really running the team yet.
Right. And when they're hired on as full-time, that's where I'm curious. Like, when was the last successful interim coach hired on as full-time for that same team?
Yeah.
Actually successful. And none come to mind.
I don't know. That's a good question. But I see like this type of thing is like, again, the fans are calling for him. But I think it's one of those things that But I think it reeks not just of Kitchens, but actually, what kind of reminds me a little bit more of Singletary.
That's what I was going to say, the Nolan Singletary. But that's another good example.
Yeah.
Right? Like
he did great when he walked in.
Yeah. he started off good, but then the reality is it just wasn't quite head coach material in the end.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with that. Sometimes you got to
Yeah.
find that out. You take a chance, but you're taking a chance. And like historically,
Right.
and this is, and like I said, I've never seen, and I'll have to go back and check, but I don't think I
I'm
remember
curious too. Yeah.
there's been a time that an interim who became full time for that team ended up taking a team being anywhere past two seasons. Like I expect probably we're gone after 2 years.
The Browns, unfortunately, we've had it too many times, and it's never worked out.
Right.
But I think because they come into a situation where they're just everything stays the same, nothing changes. They just hype the team up a little bit, kind of get rid of that bad taste of whatever that coach was doing, kind of get them hyped a little bit. But then when it comes to the grind of the offseason and actually making it your team, they're not prepared for it because there's a lot more to it than people want to do. It's not. I think people undervalue or not undervalue, but underestimate what head coaches do, how involved they are. I mean, think about these guys. It's not a full-time job. People act like it's a 48, hour work week for them. It's not. They work 100 hours.
Live there. They pretty much live there. Yeah.
It's and then you have to hire the right staff, which is incredibly important. I mean, it's just what it is. And then you have to game plan for everything. So it'd be interesting to see. I mean, but again, to your point, I think the stats, I'd be interested to see if who actually came in as an intern head coach and actually did well.
Yeah. And so to that point, so that aside, but to your question, like where is Harbaugh going to land? I mean, there's a lot of open spots right now that are open. Now, there are teams in the playoffs who could have open spots after the playoffs, depending how they do. Like
who?
The Cowboys being one. If the Cowboys don't get to the Super Bowl, then McCarthy's gone, and he should be gone at that point.
I never liked that pick to begin. As much as I hate the Cowboys, I never liked that pick.
No, neither did I. It never made sense. And then Philadelphia, although more or less likely, but I know there's been a lot of talk over the last few weeks because they started off 10-1 and finished 11-6, going 1-5, and looking just pathetic throughout all that. Like, should Sirianni be gone? Like, is he even? But I think that'd be ridiculous if they were to let him go because 1 year removed from the Super Bowl, he had a great start. Okay, he didn't finish off well. Fine, give him another year to see if he can correct himself.
What? So
his offensive coordinator. His offensive coordinator left, and that's where a lot of the struggle came in.
Well, wait, I'm trying to remember, but did his coordinator leave or did he
fire him? No, his coordinator left. He took over in Indianapolis.
Oh, that's right. Well, yeah. I mean, no, I meant what happened for the collapse?
Oh,
I'm trying.
Was it just because they lacked scheme and when the Niners exposed them badly, that people realized here's how you beat them? And I think yeah, I mean that's what it looks like. It only takes one team to expose you, and then you find flaws. Right. And like good teams can start taking advantage of that. Right. Even bad teams apparently, because they weren't beating anybody really.
Yeah, I mean it's one thing to get beat by the 49ers at that time, but it started a trend where it's like, all right, you lose to the 49ers at that time when the 49ers were, probably one of the hottest teams in the NFL, or if not the. But it was one thing then to continue that spiral, and then what happened with the Cowboys, it just was just as bad, if not worse, almost.
Yep. But to your point, like Harbaugh again, you got Washington, you got Carolina, you got others, that are available right now.
What about Buffalo? Possibly another, like you said, playoff.
That's true. Yeah,
I don't like. That team has regressed so much, and I don't really. There's no outside of. You could say Allen, you can blame him, but
you can't blame him for part of it. But I agree. I mean, he's not helping. He's putting them in a bad position.
Exactly.
But McDermott, I agree. I kept always looking at him as like the coach that can get you to the playoffs, but he can't get you any further.
Yeah.
And so the Bills have to make a move, and depending if they lose that game to Pittsburgh, which I don't think they will. But if say they don't even get as the number 2 seed, they don't even get to the AFC title game, then there's probably questions, especially depending how they lose.
Yeah.
If it's a close one, it was just some bad roll against a group, like the Chiefs or something like that.
Right.
But then, okay, what do you do? But you also have to ask, is McDermott still going to get you to that next level? Is it the coaching? Is it the players? Is it a combo of both? So
Yeah,
I agree. McDermott's probably another one that could go.
he's
And I think,
definitely the hot seat.
yeah, but those are probably the three teams in the playoffs I consider might have potential to give up on their coach in the offseason. Cowboys most definitely.
You really think so?
Yeah, if they don't get to at least the NFC title game this year and barely lose, like he's gone. Like I
And
can't see Jerry Jones keeping him anymore.
that's the thing about the Cowboys. They just don't lose. It's they either blow a team out or they look really bad losing.
Yeah.
It's and I believe that I blame on coaching. When you see that type of disparity, that just that difference between winning and losing for them. It's like everybody always talks about, the Cowboys up until I think what was the Eagles game where they hadn't beat anybody with a winning record, and the teams that they lost to with a winning record, they lost to badly.
Yeah. Well, and the teams they beat with winning records, it's kind of a smoke and mirrors too.
Right.
They beat the Eagles team who just got destroyed by the Niners.
Right.
And then they beat the Dolphins who were without key players.
Right.
And that, and then when they beat the Detroit, they should have lost because the 2-point conversion should have been good.
Yeah.
It didn't work. So, we'll see. We'll see how it goes. But as far as Coach Carroll, the one I'm most interested in is not Vrabel. He'll find someplace. Carroll, I don't know if he'll find a place this year or not. But it's like Belichick, because I hear a lot of people saying, "Oh, this almost." I've seen analysts say that every team in the NFL would consider Belichick. I'm like, no, disagree. First off, his age is going to be a big factor for a team that's trying to build. Plus, he's not going to want to go to a team that's pre-building. He wants to go to a team that's at least capable of making the playoffs and going further.
And for him, it's
like the Niners wouldn't give up on Shanahan. Like, for instance, Niners wouldn't give up on their coach.
There's a ton of teams that wouldn't give up on their.
No, it's not like Andy Reid's going to get dropped suddenly for Bill Belichick. So the comment was stupid. Not every team is going to be excited to have a Bill Belichick. I don't care what he did.
It also has to be fit.
Yeah, it has to make sense.
And that's the one thing that always kills me about. They say, like, even like with the Belichick thing, where when Brady left, Brady won a Super Bowl. It's like, well, first of all, Brady picked a team that needed a quarterback.
Yeah, he was smart. He picked a winning team. Yeah.
He picked a team. And then when they got him, they also went all in on winning a Super Bowl. I think
brought Gronk in. I mean, they brought a few players in that he said they should get, and they did, and because he knew full well they would give him that last edge to get across.
Right. And that's what they needed. So I think that's really stupid to act like Brady just went to a team and won a Super Bowl because he's Brady. But
it's a boring story if you go that way. You got to give me a story.
Not a story.
No.
But again, you needed that fit. It's like you look at even like Belichick and Brady. I mean, they needed each other.
I agree. It was a good fit. I mean, Brady
is no nonsense, hard. Just
look. Brady acknowledged Belichick's not retirement. He's not retiring.
Right.
Leaving the Patriots with the reality, like we did everything together, and there were good times and bad times, but it was always about winning in the team, and that's all that he cared about. That's all they both cared about.
And it was always funny. They say that, like, now the narrative changes that Belichick never won without Brady, but it's like, the first 3 Super Bowls really weren't Brady. I mean, not saying that it wasn't
Vinatieri.
Right. It wasn't Brady as we know him in the later years. It wasn't. It was mostly Belichick at that time, but he needed that type of quarterback in Vinatieri and so on to win.
Yeah.
But it's funny how the narrative changes based upon what happens.
The Patriots never had a blowout win in a Super Bowl. Never.
No.
Interesting enough, Brady's only blowout win was when he was with Tampa and they beat the crap out of the Chiefs.
Yeah.
That was it. Other than that, every single Patriots Super Bowl victory was less than 7 points.
Yeah.
Which
is only overtime game too.
Yeah, that's 28-3. Oh, which is a good one. What if Belichick goes to Atlanta?
Right.
Atlanta's also open. So, although I wouldn't see him going to Atlanta, but he could.
It's hard. Do you think if he goes to another team, he's going to want to be GM?
I think that he'll want at least. he won't get GM because people have seen enough over the last 20 years to see he's a horrible GM.
Yeah.
What they'll probably do is what he'll want, and when probably someone will agree to, is just that they'll still be a GM, but he'll at least have say on roster moves, and he'll be more involved on the players to pick. But he shouldn't be the ones that makes the final decision because God knows he makes horrible decisions about players. He loves to pick these guys that he considers to be, diamonds in the rough, and then they never turn
Well,
into
no, the
anything.
thing is, when it works, but
But it doesn't work enough, and he
Yeah.
puts his team. That's why you're seeing this poor team now.
Yeah.
And plus, his indecision. Like Mac Jones was not a bad quarterback. Hell, they got him to the Super Bowl, the playoffs, the first year with 10 wins.
Yeah.
So was Mac Jones just suddenly digressing? I mean, the next year he lost his offensive coordinator, and Brainiac Belichick decides, you know what? I'm going to put defensive coordinators as the offensive coordinator. I mean, that ruined it for him. And then this year, they finally bring an offense coordinator against Belichick's wishes, apparently. He didn't really want to. He wanted to stick with what he was doing. And they got even worse. So
it's one of those things where I think with guys like Belichick, when it works, he's a genius. When it doesn't work, and I think to your point, I think more and more those not working has happened more often than it working. Where in the past, it worked a lot, but now, and again, maybe it's a lot easier though, and with a cushion of when you have a true franchise quarterback, you have that wiggle room. Unless you have a true top tier franchise quarterback, you don't have that wiggle room.
Yeah, well, you also have the environment because when Brady left, if Belichick maintained the current hard-nosed environment, which he did, no one wants to go play for that. Like if you're not winning and you're a hard ass, then I'm not going to bother.
When you
I have no job, then I need
when
money.
The leader in the locker room, your quarterback is no different. What are you going to say?
Yeah,
I mean that's why look, everybody says if Randy Moss had Brady for Randy Moss's whole career, Moss can only last there a year.
Yeah,
I mean Moss talent wise was better than Rice talent wise, but I would never pick Rice over Moss.
I don't know. I always say athleticism, yes. I don't know about talent.
Athleticism, yeah.
Because talent to me is different than athleticism. Athleticism just gives you the ability to be speed and jump high. Great, good job. So I can chuck it up there and you should be able to grab it.
Cracking the ball in, his route, everything, his speed. But I'm just saying
he was a horrible route runner.
You're now you're going to distract from the point that I'm trying to make.
Sorry, go ahead. Sorry.
No, but I'm just saying though, a Randy Moss couldn't stay there.
No, I agree. He didn't. He only lasted a year and a half, right? A year and a half, maybe. Yeah.
And because that's Randy Moss is who he is. He's not a team player, and it's not a major knock against him because he's still a Mount Rushmore wide receiver, but still.
Yeah, we got a conversation about that one. Yeah. So, but I agree with you. I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
So let's jump into the playoff matches because they're coming up starting today. Interestingly enough, you got Cleveland first against the Texans. NBC.
Yeah.
You excited about that? Who do you think's going to win?
Now, I think the Browns will win, but the Texans are a good team. I mean, I think most of us Browns fans was really hoping that Jacksonville would just win one game because we felt better about playing them than the Texans. But
yeah, that's another team that fell off.
The Jaguars obviously showed who they were. I mean, the reason why we wanted to play them is the reason why they're not in the playoffs. Is they're just not right now a good team. But I think the Texans are on an upswing. I think that their defense really can't handle our offense. And we got a lot of people back from injury and a lot of people recover, but we're still missing a ton of people. So I feel the Browns will win, but I don't think it's going to be it's going to be close. It's going to be to the end. I can see us winning by 4 or 5 or something like that. A 31-27 or something like that.
There we go. I was just going to say, what's your score? Let's really jump out here. Let's jump out here.
I mean, as good as our defense is, for some reason, Shroud has just been, he's just showing a lot. We're still also missing our our safety. So there's some things that also I haven't checked, but our number one receiver decides to get hurt in practice again. I love Denzel Ward, but he just gets hurt too much, and he got hurt in practice. So
it's if we have hard, Ward, dude, he wants to win.
I know, no, that's the hard part. I think his body's just not durable enough for the NFL because he's gotten hurt because he's such a great tackler, but he puts his whole body into it. I mean, as a player, he doesn't shy away from hits, but it just obviously his body maybe just can't handle what he wants to do.
Yeah,
that's just what it is.
That's true.
But no, it depends on with our defense. But I can see them scoring in the 20s.
Yeah,
not easily, but I really can see it. And it'll really depend upon if we can keep the momentum going with our offense with January Joe Flacco.
Well, I'm going to pick the Browns as well. I kind of agree with a lot of the points you made. They just defensively, they're stronger. Even weakened down, they're still a great matchup against them.
Yeah.
And offensively, Flacco can just start chucking it.
Yeah.
And I think that's going to be tough for the Texans.
It's good chemistry,
yeah. So on my score, I'm going to go 28-24. I agree with you. I think it's going to be close. I'm going to go 28-24. Browns pull this one off. Okay, now the game that's only on Peacock. So if you don't have Peacock, you can't watch this unless you live in the local area. Is Kansas City, Miami, which is actually a really good game that they're going to put on Peacock. Although, and we talked about this the other day, I just read the report. The wind chill, so the temperature is going to be -2 degrees at game time.
Right.
The wind chill factor -22. They're going.
Okay, so it's not going to be as cold as I. And people are probably just making that shit up, to be honest. That I heard.
Probably. But they're telling them to bring it. They're going to allow them to bring towels in, something they don't, or blankets, something they don't allow in the past, right? They don't usually let you carry all this stuff.
They're worried about frostbite.
Exactly, that's their point. For the fans coming, they really need to make sure the fans. Let's see how many idiots will be on. I expect at least a couple. We'll see with no shirt on, just to prove a point to show how cool they are.
Just have to make sure they drink enough to be warm enough before hypothermia actually sets in.
Basically. And then they're going to have hot chocolate available and all that other stuff, which is good. You need that shit. I mean, if you're going to drink anything, drink that.
Need something to warm up,
Yeah. So, but this one, to your point, I don't know. I know it's going to be cold. I don't know if there's going to be weather concerns like heavy snow or
actually, no.
Well, actually, are going to be there.
But again, think about it. Even for like catching, I mean, holding on to the ball.
That's going to be cold. That's like a rock being thrown at your frozen hands.
I don't know who do you think is at more disadvantage? They're both
Miami. No, Miami.
Well, but the thing is, their running game isn't that bad.
I don't know if Mostert's playing. Was he cleared?
That's true. You're right. Yeah, but
we're still up in the air. Yeah,
I just don't know who it gives it a real advantage to because Kansas City's not a good running team right now.
No, and it's funny. People talk about can the Chiefs turn it up, and my answer is I've seen teams like this. Great teams who struggle for a year. They can't. Like they feel like they can. It's just not going to happen. Honestly, I'm actually. Like I said, this benefits the Chiefs, but I'm going to go with the Dolphins. I think they're going to pull it off. I think it's going to be like a 17-10 game. It's going to be super low, and 17 is probably too high. But I'm taking the Dolphins at 17-10. What about you?
I'd say like 20-14 type thing. Probably similar to what you're saying. I don't.
But who are you picking?
Miami.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I just again, I think it really leans if Mostert is able to play if they can run, but you just don't know in this type of game. I mean, it can very easily be the opposite. I mean, if I had to pick, if I was betting straight up, I'd pick Miami. I just also don't have a lot of faith in. But again, even with Miami, you never know what Miami team you're going to get.
True.
They're very much. But I don't know.
Well, and they did lose one of their best defensive players.
Factor.
Yeah, and they lost one of their best defensive players.
Yeah.
At the end of the season too. So, so there's kind of a lot going against them. But I just feel like Kansas City's been finding ways to lose games.
Definitely.
Like not intentionally. Obviously, no one's intentionally out to try and lose games, but they have opportunities and they just can't catch it. A stupid penalty, something like that, and it just ruins it for them. So,
and those are the things where you look at like usually those teams that go on Super Bowl runs. Like if you look right now, like with the Ravens, those things swing their way all the time.
Yep.
And I don't think it's luck. I don't believe in that. I just think that it's like, I think it's a mental thing where right now they're just on this coasting, just playing football and doing well. So when these 50-50 situations come up, you know, they win it. Yep. Where I think with the Chiefs and the Eagles right now, they're both those teams that are like losing it.
Yeah. Well, it's gonna be interesting with Baltimore, but we'll talk about that one next week, considering we don't know who they face. But Lamar Jackson has a tough time in the playoffs, so we'll see how that goes. All right, so then we got Sunday's games. We got 2 again. They were supposed to be 3, but they moved Buffalo, so now it's only 2, which is probably best. First game, you got the Pack against the Cowboys. Who you going with?
I think the Cowboys. I think Love has really come on well, and I think the Pack has really come on at the end of the season. But I don't know. I see the Cowboys winning. What I don't know is how close is it going to be. I think it can either be close or a blowout.
Well, what do you think? The score? I know. You got to jump on. Give me a score. No hiding from the show.
I think it's going to be close, though. I actually don't see the Cowboys. I think in the playoff time, to your point, like you just brought up about Lamar, I don't have faith in the Cowboys in the playoffs.
It's a fair point.
Against a decent team and a team that had beat them in Dallas earlier this year.
Yeah.
You know, so I don't have a lot of faith in the Cowboys. I think that they'll pull it off, but I think it's going to be somewhere like, I could see it being a high scoring game, like 34-31 or something like that.
Really? Right? You think their offense is that good?
I think it's just one of those things where if you maybe I'm wrong. And, you know, as a Cowboys fan, no. I just wonder. It just seems like one of those things where if the Cowboys score a lot of points, they also seem to give up a lot of points.
They tend to towards the end. You're right. They let teams come back, and I hate that.
And that's kind of what I'm wondering is going to happen.
Yeah, it's a fair point.
So, I don't know.
Well, I don't. Surprise for me. I'm going to pick the Cowboys, of course. Only because I feel like this year, at least in this first round, they can definitely get through it. Unlike years past where I'd had less hope for them.
Right.
This year, and to your point, I actually think it's going to be a little bit more distant in score. Okay. I think it's going to be something like 37-20. Like I
honestly can see that happen. Yeah.
Yeah. Easily. I think it'll be close for a while, but the Cowboys will just take off because Love is still first time ever in the playoffs. He'll figure it out, but he's also, we've seen up and downs with him.
Right.
He's been playing great to your point. Like, so he's on a good flow right now.
CeeDee Lamb has also been dominant.
Right. And as long as Dak plays and doesn't overthink and doesn't try to do more, then they'll be fine.
Right.
If he tries to do too much, and let's not leave it to if it gets close and late in the game, if McCarthy has to make a decision, the Cowboys are fucked.
He's gonna make the wrong one. Yeah.
Yeah. He's gonna waste time, or he's gonna make a bad play call. Just stupid. So anyway, but all right. So we got that one. How about this game will be exciting too. Rams against Detroit. Yeah.
I think Detroit. I mean, I think Rams are on an upswing, but I still think we'll see. Because the one thing is, even though the Lions don't have playoff experience, Goff has playoff experience.
Yeah.
You know, I think that's a big difference. I'm not sure about their coach. I think he makes them stupid. I think he's one of those ones who...
Is it stupid or is it just passion, man? I love his fucking fuck you.
Oh, I love his passion. That's not the question. But he sometimes just... Dude.
He had the 2-pointer. He had the 2-pointer. He wasn't wrong.
You were right. He wasn't wrong. But then it just... Yeah. I mean, it's just one of those things where in the playoffs, it's one thing to gamble during the regular season. It's with the playoffs, is the finality of it is a lot. But
sometimes coaches like that, Sean Payton, when the Saints won their Super Bowl, remember, start of the second half kickoff onside. Colts never expected it, got it right back and kept going.
I'm not saying no. When it works great. Yeah.
Right.
Well, obviously, if it works, then you win a Super Bowl.
Yeah.
You know, but the whole point is that I just hope he doesn't do something like that and not trusting his team to be able to play football and win. Because
Yeah.
essentially, one of the hard parts is that when you go for that 2-pointer to either win or lose the game, you're basically, in a way, you can easily say it's like really gutsy, really whatever, but it's also say that you don't trust your defense.
Maybe not. It's also a sense that you believe you can win, like they can't stop you.
It depends on if you're a defensive player, what do you think it says? I mean, it depends on who you're asking. Oh yeah, you're giving faith to your offense. Great. So now your offense feels good, but your defense is like, okay, yeah.
I don't know. If it's a low scoring game, then it's not because you don't trust your defense. They've held them the whole game. You're just trying to win it now. And that to your defense and offense shows you got faith that they can pull it off right now. And they're just, you want to win.
True.
I mean, everybody wants to win. But to your point, yeah, it just depends. I mean, it depends on the situation of the game. But so what do you think the score for that'll be?
Now I don't know.
Just guess, man. Come on. I mean, it's not. I'm not going to hold you to it. Although I'm writing all these down, but I'm not going to.
I think it could be like 28. I just don't know about I can see it like being like 28-17 Lions winning.
All right.
Like a solid win by the Lions. I don't know about the Rams. I don't know how much of it is just them having momentum or if that's who they really are.
Right.
But yeah, I could see that one being the one game that I could see that kind of being a Detroit winning solid, because I do think that they are a better team than the Rams. It's just a matter of are they a playoff team?
Yeah,
in the playoffs.
I agree, and I think the Lions will win this one too. I think they've been good all year. Yeah, there have been some breakdowns, but they've always. The interesting thing with the Lions is they've come back.
They come back.
They've been behind, so they never give up, and that's a testament to their coach. So that constant mentality of you're never out of it, keep going, which is also why he did the 2-pointer. I think is because of that mentality, which to your point can be great, and sometimes it can backfire.
And again, going back to the Belichick thing, when it works, you're a genius.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But for me, I think this one also. I kind of agree with you. Similar. I think it'll be more like a 24-17 game. Like it'll be within a touchdown between the two.
Sure.
I just don't think the Lions. I think the Rams have been playing better, which I hate, but the Rams have been playing better. But at the same time, Stafford's still a gunslinger. That fucker will throw picks.
Yeah.
Like, again, never should have made the Super Bowl 2 years ago. True. It was a pick straight in the corner's hands, and he just dropped it. And that would have ended the game, and they never would have made the Super Bowl. So,
isn't it crazy how the 49ers' luck at Super Bowls or playoffs has been disaster the last 10, 15 years?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, Bucks, Eagles.
Yeah.
I think the Eagles
actually, hold on. Before that, Bills, Pittsburgh. Because that got moved.
Oh, yeah, Bills, Pittsburgh, yeah. Well, that's Monday. I thought we were finishing up with. Oh, that. Yeah, oh,
both
Eagles.
Monday. They're both Monday now.
Bills. I think Bills are going to win it easily.
Yeah, same.
Steelers are. And look, this isn't my bias. Steelers are not a good team, especially they're not going to have T.J. Watt. They have no chance.
Right.
They don't have a quarterback. They don't have. I mean, their defense playing well is the only thing that has kept them with a winning record this year. And obviously, it has not been their offense. Our offense has been horrific, and no change has happened to believe in their offense. And now without their best defensive player, it'd be like if we went to the Houston game without Myles Garrett, we would have no chance. I would say the same thing.
Agreed. Yeah.
We'd be able to score, but defense-wise, we wouldn't. Our defense would be middle of the pack without Garrett.
Yep.
And it's the same thing with the Steelers with T.J. Watt. Without him, they have no chance.
Agreed.
They're almost like quarterbacks.
Pretty much.
The Bills should win it like 31-10. I think there's going to be a blowout this year. The only variable is what is the weather going to be like?
Yeah. I mean, if it's a huge snowstorm's going off at the time, it'll be a low. I still say Bills will beat them easily, but it just means it'll become more of a running game. It
won't be high scoring just because they don't have as many chances.
And Allen is a running back. Like they use him as a running back.
He's a king.
Yeah, he's a big running back.
But I think no matter, if the storm is that bad, then I don't even see the Steelers. I mean, they may get a field goal because of a turnover or something like that.
Yeah, exactly.
Like a turnover in Bills territory. But if the weather's that bad where the Bills can only score like 17 or 14, like if they can't even go for a field goal type thing, I don't think the Steelers offense can do anything.
Yeah.
It's
agreed. And I agree with you. I go with the Bills, and I think the Bills, for me, the score was more like 30-7. Like No different than what you have.
I think that this is one, depending upon what happens with the weather, it's going to be the one blowout this playoff round.
Yep. Agreed.
But even this one, even the other one, the Eagles Buccaneers, I can see it being a blowout too. Buccaneers are not a good team. They backed into it. I mean, it's like
by default, they won their games. They didn't back into it.
They did their games. But in the playoffs, though, I mean, they're just not a good team.
I don't know. The quarterback there has won playoff games before.
One. And he didn't win it. The Steelers handed it to us.
He won the same amount.
As much as I love that
the same amount Cleveland's won in the last 10 years.
True. But it's still the Steelers,
you just hate Mayfield, dude. It's fine.
Roethlisberger, I don't actually hate him.
Yeah, you do.
I really don't. You know what I don't like? You know what I don't like? And I'll say it right now to maybe the one listener that I might be. I hate Mayfield fans. I don't hate Mayfield. I love him for what he did. He helped. Right. He did help change the culture. But and again, I also think that he can become a top tier quarterback. I still think the mental part of the game is still there's still a maturity. There's still something that he still is trying to use that chip on his shoulder, walk on thing in the NFL. I think it just doesn't work.
Which is funny because he was a top 5 pick.
No. I know. That's what I mean.
No, I agree. I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah. It's just funny. He's a top 5 pick and he has a chip on his shoulder. Like Tom Brady had a chip on his shoulder because he was picked in the 7th round. Brock Purdy can have a chip on his shoulder because he's Mr. Irrelevant. Everybody passed him.
That's what I mean. The whole college thing is just. I just don't think Buccaneers is good enough. Yeah. The only reason why they win is because the Eagles are just falling apart.
So who do you pick? I'm assuming you're going with the Eagles.
I'm going with the Eagles, and I'm going that. I honestly think it'd be like 24-10.
Okay, yeah. I mean, they only scored 9 points against freaking Carolina, the Buccaneers.
Yeah.
In the last game.
I'm trying to give them a little bit of benefit just because, that Carolina game showed. Like everybody was saying that Mayfield was doing great up until then, but the last 2 games he's done horribly.
Yeah.
That's what I mean. I never have faith in him.
Yeah, he's average.
That's why we traded him away. But yeah.
But he has playoff experience. Now, I'm actually going to pick the Bucs. I'm going to buy into the concept that the Bucs are playing better, even though it doesn't look as good, are still playing better than the Eagles, who've gone 1-5 and have looked just pathetic.
So are you saying that it's the Bucs are going to win or the Eagles are going to lose?
Eagles are going to lose it. Yeah, okay. Eagles are going to lose it.
That I don't disagree with. I can see that.
It's not the Bucs are going to win it. The Eagles are going to give it to them somehow.
That one I don't disagree with. Yeah. That one I can see just as likely as what I said.
Yeah, it's
either going to be the Eagles are just going to hand the game over, or they're going to win it pretty. They're going to have a good game against America.
Yeah. And I think my standpoint, it's going to be a close game again, but I figure Bucs will probably win 20-14, and 20 is a stretch just because it'll probably be more like 17-14, like they'll barely pull it off. But I expect Bucs, when they win, it'll be a combination of things. One, it'll definitely be the Eagles giving them opportunity to win it.
100%.
And they'll pull it off at the end. So yeah.
I think straight up talent-wise, there's no way that they should.
No, I agree. They shouldn't even be competitive in this.
Yeah. I actually, you know what? I think yours is as likely, if not possibly more than what I said.
I don't know. We'll see because the Eagles can turn it around if playoff time. Yeah. But it's like the Chiefs. It's the same concept. Like suddenly turn it on. You can't just suddenly turn it on.
But again, I think
then you'd be suddenly turning it on all season.
The difference is the Chiefs are playing a good football team. So the Chiefs really have to get back to being the Chiefs. Where the Eagles just don't do something stupid. They should win this game, no problem.
Yeah. Well, Eagles are on the road. Chiefs are at home.
That's
so there's differences there. But interestingly enough, so of all our picks, literally the last game's the only one you and I disagreed on.
Yeah.
Outside of that, we pretty much picked Finns, Cowboys, Lions, Bills, and then we split.
Yeah.
So nice. Well, we'll see. I tracked it down because I'm curious next week. See how right we were and how wrong we were.
And also not just the win-loss part of it, but actually how they won-loss. That's, I think, more interesting to talk about.
Agreed.
Yeah. Cool.
Nice. Well, I'm excited for the games.
Yeah,
they all start later today. And I hope everybody enjoyed listening to this week's episode as we just focused on the NFL playoffs and some of the coaching changes. We will be back next week with probably more NFL playoffs, any more exciting breaking news that happened during the week as well.
True.
And we'll see how close we were.
Sounds good.
All right. Well, once again, if you like it, for the 2 listeners who listen, thank you very much. there's more of you out there. We appreciate it. Just go ahead and subscribe, like, and don't forget there's a YouTube channel called The Gen X Guys, so you can watch us there. All right, take care.